Hi, I'm Will Webb, and this is Why You Should Watch. In this episode, we're discussing the 2001 haunted house chiller, The Others.
Sometimes the world of the dead gets mixed up with the world of the living.
Grace lives with her two children, Anne and Nicolas, in a large empty manor on Jersey in 1945. The children are allergic to sunlight, so the manor is perpetually dark and Grace is always on edge. As the children begin to tell stories about speaking with ghosts, and Grace herself starts to experience strange phenomena, her carefully balanced state of mind starts to fall apart. Joining me for this chat is Ellie Rogers, a children's BAFTA-winning director and maker of short films, who brings a fascination with ghost stories to this very interesting discussion.
Sooner or later, she'll see them. Then everything will be different.
I was 11 years old when I first saw this film. And I think I saw it kind of immediately as it was released on DVD, because I remember, my family and I would always go to Blockbusters and rent the latest kind of films. And it must have been a month previous to its release that I saw a trailer for it with them. And I remember watching it and going, oh my God, I'm not watching that. And all of my family were like, oh my God, we really need to watch that. And I'd been sort of scared the shit out of with The Sixth Sense sort of a year previously, and I hadn't slept for like a week after seeing that, and constantly had to get my dad to sort of search for like a little sort of Misha Barton ghost under my bed and things. And so I was really not up for scaring myself rigid again, but I didn't like ever being sort of left out. So we did rent it, and I watched it, and it really blew me away. Even as a young kid, I knew I wanted to do something in filmmaking and things. And but it was the first film that really, I think, the kind of satisfaction of its resolution had such a kind of profound kind of effect on me, sort of psychologically. And a film had never really done that before. It was sort of so satisfying, and kind of I wasn't scared by kind of it as a complete film once I'd sort of gone through all those motions. So I was sort of watching it at such a level of kind of heightened like fear and up and down, and then finally it had just such a brilliant kind of resolution that I won't spoil yet. So yeah, I think that's why it had such an impact on me. And then a few weeks later, it was my birthday, so it was my 12th birthday, and I got all of my girly friends to come around for a sleepover and watch it, much to the like hatred of their parents, I think. And it was awful because a lot of them got picked up before the film finished, so they didn't have that kind of resolution moment. So my parents got in trouble with a few other parents who were like, why did you let us children watch this? Like, but yeah, and it's a film that I constantly go back to. I just find it so enjoyable. I think it's aged really well. I think the performances are stunning. It was sort of, like I said, it's the first film that really made me consider filmmaking in a very different way, I think.
I wanted to kind of start talking about what makes the film so good, and I was really struck on first watching it about one of the most basic things about film, which is like light and contrast and shadow, and that as a storytelling tool, which becomes part of the narrative in this. We kick off with these kids who are unable to be in the sunlight, and I think it's partly the makeup design and partly a really good bit of casting that those kids, the first time you meet them, look so damn delicate. You really don't want those curtains to open up.
Yeah, no, I heard that they were kept out of the sun because it was filmed in Spain, and they were kept out of the sun for the whole production, which I think was a bit of a blow because apparently there was a swimming pool on top of the house, I think, and they weren't allowed to go in.
And it opens on this really foggy exterior of the house, and then we move inside the house and spend almost all of the film in the house. And it's impossible to tell what time of day it is in the house by design because you can never see external light as much as possible. And sometimes that's almost played for scares because there's sequences where Nicole Kidman is like running through the house with a candle, and she finally gets a breather in a room and opens up a curtain and there's bright sunlight outside.
Yeah.
And it's all used to construct this idea that Grace and to some extent her kids, and also the servants who arrive at the start of the film to work for her, are all stuck in this kind of, I guess what I would call an existentially limited space. They don't have much evidence of there being an outside world. And in that sense, I think the film is as much a haunted house horror as it is like in a genre like Cube, where it's about the mystery of this location and how it functions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've heard Alejandro Amenàbar, the director, talk about the light and the kind of use of kind of chiaroscuro and things. And I think he described it literally as and it's described in the film as a ship, and you have to treat the light like water, and you have to kind of keep it out of the rooms and things, which I think is such a great little kind of metaphor for it. I think it's really powerful. And I think it's a testament to the sound design as well, because sound does change when you have these really heavy curtains kind of obscuring the kind of the outside, no bird noises or anything like that. And then suddenly when they are kind of flung open, it feels so different and such a different kind of temperature in the room. I'm such a sucker for kind of candle lit sort of corridors and scenes like that. I just adore that sort of thing. And yeah, the old kind of I guess they're kerosene lamps. I can't remember what they're called, but they're so amazing. I heard recently that they're intending someone's bought the rights to remake it, but modern day. And I just thought that that's so sad to kind of imagine, I don't know, Grace running around with an iPhone or something in these dark places. It just doesn't really make sense to me. It just, it really changes the atmosphere.
I was thinking about one of the things that makes that enforced dark quite interesting is that it removes the comfort of routine from the film. Because one thing I find difficult with a horror is that I'm sometimes like, well, why don't they just say sell the house? Or what happens when the kids go to school? What's it like? And I don't know if you've watched American Horror Story.
A little bit.
If you've seen the first series, they have both those questions answered. They actually confront them. They try to get a realtor in and they can't sell the house for a number of reasons. And the kid does just go to school all the time. And so she has to kind of carry on doing her grades while there are ghosts in the house at night.
Oh my God.
And this takes the opposite choice, where it becomes part of the question of the film by kind of narrativizing why they're in the dark all the time and why there is no sound. That lack of sound as well is really interesting. I think that is almost more effective, if less obtrusive than the light as well. And they talk about it, don't they, that even the seagulls have stopped making noise.
Yeah.
And even the fog, when you do see those exterior scenes, which are very rare, you can't really tell when in the day it is because of the fog.
No.
So there's this very soft, diffuse light.
Yeah, it is this kind of timeless zone, which all makes sense at the end, but it's a very kind of strange atmospheric kind of feel to it, which is all CGI as well, which is mental. I watched like a special features on like the CGI and stuff recently, and all of the fog and stuff is kind of completely CGI'd. It's all quite bright because it's in Spain and things, and it's like, but yeah, I was kind of amazed that even at that level, I was like, I didn't even guess that.
Wow. And for 2001 as well, I think that's a really good effect. I've seen much worse fog in modern movies.
Exactly. I watched it again the other day, and I was thinking much more about kind of Grace's mindset and how she has been kind of constantly abandoned by her husband to go to war, abandoned by her parents who left previously, and she hadn't heard from them after that and things. And so sort of the world has got smaller and smaller for her until it becomes this house with just the children who she's there to kind of, look after and protect. But it becomes so sort of oppressive for her that no wonder like anybody would find that maddening. And I think, it's, we all have experienced that somewhat with this pandemic of kind of just having to be confined to a house and things. So yeah, people can relate to that now.
But at least I have Minecraft.
Exactly. I know, right? At least we have Netflix and stuff.
Imagine you're kind of listening to this and thinking, wow, I've never heard of this movie. This sounds good. It's 20th anniversary. Wow, great, cool. I should watch this. How would you recommend this to people? What particular scene or sequence would you kind of pick out and say, give that a watch? That will tell you what the film's like.
There are so many scenes. It's really hard to kind of pick. I mean, I think one that I always love, it's a very short little sequence, is when Nicole Kidman is sewing some embroidery in the next door room with the curtains open and things, and Anne is being punished for something that she's done the night previously, and she's on the stairs and you can hear her kind of reading the Bible in the background. And Nicole Kidman says to Mrs. Mills, incidentally, can you tell Lydia it's sort of she doesn't need to make such a racket upstairs cleaning things. I can hear her constantly going up and down. And Miss Mills says, okay, I'll go tell her. And then you're kind of, we sit in this room kind of comfortably with Grace for a while. And then undoubtedly you hear the footsteps upstairs that start getting louder. And then suddenly there's this kind of boom, 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 boom kind of across. And I love the camera movements in this scene. Like it's so beautifully done, and kind of like high angle kind of going across, and you feel the kind of shake of the chandelier and things. It's so brilliantly done. And she sort of, gets flustered and frustrated at this. And we know that she has migraines previously. So, she doesn't want to set off her migraines. That she stands up and she goes, oh, well, she's gone too far. And then suddenly in the corner of her eye, she sees through the window, Mrs. Mills stood in the driveway talking to Lydia. And in that moment, she realizes, well, if Lydia's outside, who's upstairs? And you have this beautiful reveal where she suddenly looks up and we look up at the ceiling and we're like, who is it? And it's sort of a brilliant setup for her to go and kind of discover what is making that noise. And the next scene is as brilliant, but I think it's it's the first moment where she recognizes there might be someone in the house other than us, which I think is really powerful and exciting. And yeah, just cinematography wise, as well as sound design, I think it's so beautifully put together. It's pure cinema in that way.
Yeah, I mean, that is the showcase for sound design in the movie, I think, because that horrible thud after the silence in the kitchen, and just, where everyone else is, you have a good sense. It's all laid out for you by Amenàbar. You know where the servants are, you know where Anne is, and then you hear the footsteps and you think, fuck.
Yeah.
It's not just Anne making it up. Oh no. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic choice. For me, my choice was Victor's first visit in the bedroom.
Yeah. Oh.
That's enough, Victor. Nicolas, tell him to leave the curtain alone. You won't listen to me. Stop it. Get off my bed, both of you. This is our bed. No, it's mine.
Anne, please stop putting on that voice.
I think we all become children in that scene. We all remember those feelings of what's behind the curtain, what's in the room with us in the dark. It's so brilliantly done, and I still find it scary.
The other thing about that scene as well is that I find myself really drawn to horror that acknowledges the importance of oral storytelling in horror. And so I like people like M.R. James, where everything is about a conversation around dinner that tells you about the story. And again, Ghost Watch is a really big touchstone for me. This is the 1990s BBC TV film Ghost Watch, which ultimately, despite having quite a lot of bangs and crashes in its last act, is mostly people telling stories about stuff that happened to each other. And so these kind of hushed voices and the way that it's shot is quite an intimate conversation between siblings, really makes you lean in. And so you when that shock does come, it's much bigger.
Yeah.
And for me, that's always more effective than the kind of James Wan type, someone wandering around a corridor looking for a demon type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's such a great thing about great ghost stories in that way. They're all the more terrifying because you're hearing them sort of from someone else's perspective.
So on that note, let's give a very large, loud, long spoiler warning for the film. I really think it is a film that makes sense, on first viewing at least, to go in without knowing about it. So at the end of the film, in the kind of really in quite a late change, you only really find out in the last 10 minutes, the three spirits who've been identified, which is Victor, this older man, and then this white-haired, white-eyed woman, turn out to be the current occupants of the house. And in the woman's case, she's a medium that's been brought in to hold seances. And the ghosts are Grace and her children. And yeah, I as a kid, found out about this twist kind of secondhand, because I wasn't allowed to watch the film.
No, really?
And I mean, I remember always being fascinated by it because it sets up this really interesting kind of question about the relationship between us as people and the history of the places we inhabit that the film does not go into at all, but kind of lets linger. I like that a few different wardrobe cues and design cues let you know that it's probably been at least a decade since Grace died because of what those people are wearing. They're dressed like they're in the 50s. And that tells you that how many lives have been through this place already before Grace realized, before these people started to integrate with them. And likewise, we know that the servants died quite a long time before Grace lived there as well, about 40 years before, I think. But in the end, it's sad. It turns the film from being something scary to being really, really sad, really, really tough, I think, that last couple of moments of the film. And ultimately, I felt like it was humane. There's a lot of ghost stories that treat ghosts as either romantic or as scary or as vengeful in Japanese films a lot. But in this film, it's humane. They are still people who have stopped living and are struggling to cope with that. And it's Kidman crying as she explains it to the kids, which I think is a really kind of touching and beautiful moment. But explain that they're dead and that she killed them.
Yeah, well, it goes back to what you're saying about, the horror stories being told and ghost stories, and it is that moment where we only learn, we've never been shown it, but we only learn through her words what has really happened, and it's a really powerful, painful moment, just in one shot, one or two shots, I think it is. Yeah,
I'm struck by ghost hunting as a kind of profession and this kind of thing about it, that they tend to think of it as something really fun, whereas I can't imagine something sadder than that. And I think it's a really powerful way to see it. And it took us about 18 years to get a ghost story, which I think is as close as we get to kind of fully exploring that theme on screen, where it's really not played for spooks at all.
Yeah, it's something I love that film, A Ghost Story. I think it's so interesting. There's also a quite a famous graphic novel. I think it's called Here. I can't quite remember, but it's very much in the same vein of like it's one location and changed over many kind of years, and it's a really interesting kind of thesis on that, really. It's something that has always fascinated me, and I think it is because of growing up in an old house. Like you kind of are so aware of the souls that have been there before and wonder who they will be after and what the place will be in years to come and things. Which is also, something really, really sad. The memories that you have about a particular place. Like my mum grew up in the same house as me and things. And so, she has very different memories of her kind of childhood and stuff as to my childhood there and things. And yet there are also these amazing overlaps of playing with the same toys or kind of, drawing on the same, kind of, not that we did, but drawing on the same walls, things like that, that is kind of poignant and beautiful. Yeah, and I think I love that moment in the others where right at the end, and it's something I think about quite a lot, when she sort of says, no one will make us leave this house is ours, say it with me, this house is ours, and you hear their kind of echoed sort of voices, and you see these different shots of the rooms and things, and just kind of aware of like they're always going to be there and always kind of going to be never going to kind of leave, which is desperately sort of sad, and you kind of wonder what their lives are going to be, because they've been in this sort of perpetual kind of playing this sort of role for however long, we don't know, but they're playing out these kind of different scenarios and stuff. When I found that out and kind of understood the ending, I was like, I kind of wanted to watch the whole film again, because you suddenly see it from a completely different point of view, and you see the scene in which she's kind of taking all of the dust sheets off of the furniture, and you go, oh my god, imagine if you were in that room and that was happening and she was invisible, like you're the person being haunted. Like that's a terrifying moment for you as well. Like seeing all the scenes in a different way is so interesting. I really feel for that family, and poor Victor, he has night terrors and all that. Victor's not going to grow up to be a happy child.
Well, they leave the house, so maybe he'll be all right. They've only been there for a while. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I think we've covered most of what there is to say about the others. I'm sure there's plenty more to say, but enough to get people interested in watching the movie.
Hopefully.
Ellie, thank you so much for coming to indietrix and talking about one of your favourite films.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And can I ask you to kind of plug your stuff? Where can people find you online, and what should they watch?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on Twitter at Ellie Rogers DIR, and my website is ellierogersdirector.com. I think most recently I did a short for BBC Sparks monologue series that's on iPlayer. It's called Sparklers. You can check it out. And then I've got a short film online called They Found Her in a Field that you can check out on Vimeo, and it's on my website and things like that.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ellie.
Oh, no worries. Thanks so much, Will. This is a pleasure.
Thanks for watching me and Ellie chat about The Others. To hear more of our discussion, including additional behind-the-scenes info about the film, our personal feelings about ghost stories, and much more, check out the Indietrix podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and basically anywhere you listen to podcasts.